Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:10. Welcome to the Township of Springfield Board of Adjustment meeting. May 16, 2023. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with the Sunshine Law. Notice was published on January 5th, 2023 in the Star Ledger, one of the official newspapers for the Township of Springfield for the year 2023, and posted in the Annex Building on January 6, 2023. Can we please stand to salute the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Stephen Hochstein? Here. Mr. Stephen Furstenbaum? Here. Mr. Raj A. Sahara? Ms. Marla Naparano? Here. Ms. Marissa Horowitz? Mr. Michael Weckstein?
Here.
Vice Chair Mark Cunningham? Here. And Chairwoman Jody Cohen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you very much. Before we get to our business, I just wanted to say that Mr. Poltrock has opted to resign from the board for personal reasons, and I want to say thank you for him to him for his time and participation, and hopefully we'll fill the vacancy soon. Resolutions up this evening are application 2022-18A, Performance Mazda 99 Route 22 East, Block 3801, Lot 5. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the resolution? Are there any questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move. Second.
I'll jump at once.
All right, Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
And we'll go with Ms. Horowitz? Yes. Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano? Yes. Mr. Weckstein?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cunningham? Yes. And Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution up this evening is application 2023-8, Springfield Holdings LLC, 8995 and 109 Victory Road, Block 301, Lots 5 and 7. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the resolution? Are there questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve? I'll move.
I'll second.
Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano? Yes. Ms. Horowitz? Yes. Mr. Weckstein?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Cunningham? Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go a little out of order for the applications this evening. My understanding is Mr. Hale is here on application 2023-5. This is 295 L Springfield LH LLC, Block 4001, Lot 3, which was here this evening for continuation. Good evening, Mr. Hale.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members, and welcome new board members. Appreciate your service. Yes, as indicated in the letter that I sent over this afternoon, and I did speak to Jen, we did receive some comments from police. We'd like to have the opportunity to have our traffic engineers and staff speak to them, and then so therefore, I apologize again for the late request, but we'd like to adjourn this evening's proceedings and carry them to the next meeting without further notice. We'll stipulate, I don't think we're close on the time period, but any appropriate extension of time, and we hope we'll work through Jen and Mike to get that meeting scheduled with police and be prepared to proceed. And I think that'll also give the board, I think a video was submitted, and we'll qualify that and present that at the next meeting with the graphic that the board had requested.
Excellent.
What you need is a motion to adjourn this matter to June 2023 at 6 p.m. And without further notice to the public, as notice is being given here.
Is there a second?
Do we need a roll call?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham? Yes. Ms. Naparano? Yes. Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Ms. Horowitz? Yes. Mr. Weckstein?
Yes.
Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Next month.
We'll discuss at a later date right now.
How are you? Okay. Let the record reflect that Board Member Saad is here.
Gotcha, thank you.
At 6:15. Thank you. Okay, the next application up this evening is application 2023-11, 281 Short Hills Avenue, Block 101, Lot 8. This is a request for side yard, rear yard height, and lot coverage variance for construction of a garage.
I know who you are.
Good evening, how are you? No. Yes, it is now.
Thank you. I am Clara Horelick. I am appearing on behalf of the applicant, homeowner John Papalillo, with regard to 281 Short Hills Avenue. As was stated, we are here this evening with regard to the 4 variances for construction of a detached 2-car garage. And that 2-car garage is replacing what was a 1-car garage that was destroyed by a neighbor's tree. To go more specific as to the relief being sought this evening as to the variances, they fall under the various sections of the ordinance. Section 35-15-5B, which is accessory buildings and uses, which would cover the garage, indicates that under 35-15.5B3, there's a minimum side yard setback of 5 feet and a minimum rear yard setback of 5 feet. The proposed side yard setback for the rear is 3.8 feet, and for the side also 3.8 feet. With regard to section 35-15.5B6, that particular ordinance requires a maximum height of 15 feet, and the proposed height for this proposed garage is 19.5 feet. With regard to the 35-14 schedule of zoning limitations, this particular property falls in the S60 zone, and under lot coverage in that zone, the requirement is a maximum of 36%, which is 4,334 square feet, and the proposed, which is the same as the current existing, is 38.3%. But let me explain why, even though this is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, why we are seeking the variance for lot coverage. Because since we are adding an accessory structure that adds to the lot coverage, that's the reason. But we have removed enough pavement so that it's a wash. And so therefore, the lot coverage amount is going to remain the same as was before. And that is at 4,615 square feet. I'm going to have appearing this evening on behalf of the applicant himself, John Papalillo, who, as I stated, is not only the applicant but the owner of the property. Courtney Lowry of Courtney Lowry Architect LLC. She's the licensed professional architect that prepared the architectural plans. And Thomas, we call him TJ, Ritchie of Stonefield Engineering and Design LLC, and he's the licensed professional planner. I'm expecting that the testimony that you're going to hear this evening will show that the granting of this variance relief will not result in any substantial detriment to the public good, and it will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinances. At this point, I would like to call Mr. Papalillo, and if you could swear him in, I would greatly appreciate it. Either sit or stand.
Hi, good evening.
Oh, you have to be sworn in. Bruce, do you do that or do you?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your home address.
John Papalillo, Popolillo, 281 Short Hills Avenue, Springfield.
So, Mr. Papalillo, what I would like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
Just please speak into the mic so that, thank you.
You got it.
Mr. Papalillo, what I would like you to do briefly is to just tell the board why you need the construction of this new garage and what led up to this. And obviously why it's a 2-car garage now and not a 1-car garage.
Okay, so back when I purchased the property in 2017, there was an existing single-car garage in the location in which we're proposing the 2-car garage. And in December of 2022, a tree from the project The apartment project behind fell and annihilated the garage, took the garage out completely. So being that the garage was destroyed and bring the house up to modern day standards, we were seeking to put a two-car garage back in its place.
Mr. Papalillo, in terms of your neighborhood, are there other two-car garages there?
Yes, immediately to the right, next two properties have two-car garages. The left has a one-car garage, and then there are some homes to the left with two-car garages as well.
And also, Mr. Papalillo, in terms of the vehicles you own, in that single-car garage that you had previously, could your vehicles fit?
No, no cars could fit in that garage.
Okay, and then with regard to the two-car garage that's being proposed, the reason for the height variance is because there's a loft for storage on top. Could you just explain to the board why you need that?
The home itself is not a terribly large home, and so just to get some stuff, that Christmas tree stuff, patio furniture stuff, that's why we're seeking a loft to be able to put some additional storage above without impeding the parking of two vehicles in the garage.
And this garage, with the loft, et cetera, there's no running water in there, correct?
There is no running
There's no
water.
heat in there, correct?
There is no heat.
There's no air conditioning there, correct?
No, that's
And you have no
correct.
intention of renting this out? This
I
is strictly
do.
for your own use and storage?
That is correct.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Papalillo. The professionals will speak to the details of the variances and the specifics of the actual project.
Thank you. Members of the board, any questions?
I have one question. What are you going to be putting in the garage?
Two vehicles, and like I said, up on the second floor, just general storage, patio furniture, a generator that I have, just, household items, Christmas tree stuff, just general stuff that takes up space.
So a garage is typically 20, 22, 23 feet deep. If you wouldn't have had it 30 feet deep, you wouldn't need the rear yard setback. Am I correct?
Probably not, but I have a large truck, pickup truck, 4-door, 150 pickup with the extended bed. I'd like to be able to pull into the garage without walking sideways down, to be able to get out. I'd like to be able to walk around, put garbage cans in front of it, and so on and so forth. So it gives it, 30 feet goes down pretty quick. Typical parking stalls are 20 feet, 18 to 20, so I got a few more feet to be able to walk around. And there's no one immediately behind me, just as an FYI. I border the development of the new apartment complex. Okay?
And just as a follow-up to the question that you were asked by the board, the front of your garage is being placed in the exact same location as the previous garage, correct?
That's correct. The front and the right side are going right in an identical location.
So the additional space to the rear is to accommodate the size of your vehicle that didn't fit in the other garage?
That's correct.
And the space that, if you were to keep to the rear yard setback, which is 5 feet, and he's got 3.8, that additional small amount, what would you gain there? Anything?
You couldn't do anything with it.
Okay.
It's dead space.
I don't have any more questions for Mr. Papalillo.
Any other questions from members of the board? Okay. Any questions? Any questions from members of the public? None. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Call
Papalillo.
your next witness.
Yes, I would like now to call Courtney Lowry. She's the architect from Courtney Lowry Architect LLC. Can you angle it so that, yes. And just for the record, these are the plans that were submitted, correct?
Yep, these
They're
are
just on a
variance
board?
plans.
Okay. This is everything the board already has.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your business address.
Sure. Courtney Lowry, Lowry. My business address is 14 Marcia Street, Parlin, New Jersey, 08859.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bruce, did you want to qualify her?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yes. I was distracted.
okay.
Yes, could you just give the board some of your background, education, and the license that you hold and whether it is current and in good standing, please?
Yes. I graduated NJIT in 2005 with my Bachelor's of Architecture, in 2006 with my Master's in Infrastructure Planning. I received my license in the state of New Jersey in 2014 and opened my own company in 2017. I have appeared before many boards before, most recently Bloomfield, Fanwood, and Scotch Plains.
And your license is still current?
My license is current and active.
Excellent, thank you. Any objections from any members of the board for qualifying this witness as an expert in architecture? None.
Okay. Ms. Lowry, if you would, from the architectural perspective, explain to the board exactly this garage, meaning how it's being built, size, the nature of the materials, et cetera.
Okay. The two-car garage is 25 feet wide by 30 feet deep. It's going to be a 2x4 wood frame structure. It's 750 square feet, which is fairly typical for a garage. As Mr. Hochstein mentioned, it is overly deep at 30 feet, and that's just to give some room in front of the large trucks that Mr. Papalillo owns. The garage is designed as a 1.5-story structure with a storage loft above. Primarily, we discussed this being for general household storage. The garage ceiling height will be 9 feet. To accommodate an 8-foot-high garage door. Again, this is standard for trucks. The storage loft will be 7'6" at the center under the ridge, but it would pitch down to 4-foot-high knee walls, similar that you would see in a Cape Cod or up in an attic. So it's not a fully flat ceiling. It will pitch down in a triangular shape, which I believe you could see on page 3 of the plans. Detail 5A-2 shows a section through that storage loft. So that's what makes it a half-story versus a full story. And as Mr. Papalillo testified, there's no HVAC or plumbing. The structure itself is planned to have vinyl siding, similar to the house in color, fiberglass roof, and windows, again, to just complement the house so that it looks like they were considerably built at the same time.
So would you say that the style of this proposed two-car garage fits within the character of the neighborhood?
It does.
Okay. And it obviously, as you testified, fits within the character of the house itself?
It does.
And behind where this garage is going is a large multifamily development that is being put up. Do you see this garage in some way, and the planner will speak to this as well, but as serving almost as a buffer and a more attractive site for this property than to see straight to the multifamily?
Yes, I have been to the site on multiple occasions. While this multifamily development is being built directly behind the client's house, and this garage at the end of the driveway will buffer some of the view, which is unfortunate, directly from the apartment's living rooms into his backyard. So I feel that the location of the garage will also help give him more privacy when he's utilizing the backyard or his kids are outside.
And just to follow up with regard to the fact that this is a longer garage, in your experience as an architect, in order to accommodate the type of vehicles that Mr. Papalillo has, this would have been the appropriate size of the garage to design, is that correct?
It is the appropriate size, and it does allow for, like I said, a little bit of space in the front or the back behind the vehicle to move around.
I don't have any other questions for the architect.
Thank you. Members of the board, do you have any questions for the architect?
I do. With the overhang of the roof, over at the eaves, you're at 3.8, that's the building, and then the eaves is another foot, so you're really gonna be 2.8 from the property line, with the actual roof of it.
With the eave, correct.
And if the building was 27, 28 feet deep, which is still deep for a garage, you wouldn't have to get that variance in the back, and you wouldn't be as close to the property line back there, correct?
That is true, yes.
And the building would be shorter, so you wouldn't have need as much of a height variance as well, because the bridge wouldn't be as high.
It would, however, by holding the 7'6" at the center, if I was back at the beginning and we redesigned it as a 3-foot smaller garage, maybe the pitch would have been raised slightly to maintain that 7.5 feet, primarily just to get that storage at the top. So when you get to the stairs, you're not hunched over and kind of giving the extra space. So I'm not sure if it would have been slightly shorter, but I don't know if it would have been significant. But yes, we could still, in theory, accommodate the car with a couple less feet, but this is a very comfortable dimension. So that's,
A follow-up to that, though. Ms. Lauer, you've been out to the site. Are there any single-family homes on that rear yard setback line, or is it only the multifamily development that's going up?
it's only the multifamily, and I believe the planner will speak to it. The neighbors, some of the garages adjacent to this property are on the property line. So they don't have that even 5-foot or 3'8" setback.
Right, the point I was getting at is that we are not, with the rear yard setback issue, we're not obstructing or coming close to a single-family home in any way.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Members of the public, are there any questions for this witness? Questions? Okay.
Good evening. My name's Robert Herbert. I am your zoning officer for the Township of Springfield. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
That soffit, that overhang, it looks like it's more than a foot past the, I don't know if that's the rear wall or sidewall, because I don't see the whole facade. Is that the rear wall of the garage over here?
This would be the rear wall, yes, and
Okay.
it is a foot on the plan.
Okay,
It's a
just
foot
look
plus the
bigger.
gutter.
Is the,
Is there any way that we could just make sure that we hold the microphone, sorry, so that each person, because they're recording and they want to be able to hear?
Sure. Is there any way that we can eliminate that soffit so we don't increase the setback? Because then with the gutter, if it's a 6-inch gutter, it's even less with setbacks to the rear property line. You know, we're proposing 3.8 the wall. If it's a foot, now we're down to 2.8 plus 6 inches. You know, you're pretty close to the rear line, even though it's two multi-dwelling complex. Is there any way we can design that so it ends flush and we just have a fascia board above the rear wall?
Can I default to the homeowner? That we absolutely can cut off the soffit and still maintain venting if that was something.
Well, I just, actually, Mr. Disco is here. I have just a question, something I remember from years ago. Isn't there something in our ordinances that speaks about gutters and soffits and certain things that do not count when you're trying to calculate what the actual setback is with regard to, the property line? There's something in our ordinance, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I recall actually being one of the people that came to a hearing to say, when people have the fancy stone and the various things that stick out from the house, that it shouldn't count in regards to these type of situations.
If I may, I can answer that question.
Yeah, I think it's 3542 too, I think, yard exceptions.
Correct. That is part of the structure, that overhang, and the concern you had about what's in our ordinance, we did modify it a few years ago, that you're allowed up to 18 inch into the setback your soffits, even though it counts as building coverage. The soffit,
Yeah, I
the
remembered
overhang.
something like that, so,
But we're already into the setback, so in this case, this wouldn't, the 18 inches wouldn't apply. Like if it was if you were proposing a 5-foot setback, reducing the garage to 27 feet, then that would meet our current ordinance, because it would only be an 18-inch setback into the setback.
and is the setback right now, are we looking at this soffit on side and rear?
I believe just the rear, right?
Just rear?
Particularly rear on the side, it's 6 inches. We do have a slight fascia overhang.
I mean, I just turned to my client. Obviously, the goal is to keep the space for the vehicle on the interior. So, I mean, I don't know what that means for architecturally the exterior, if there's a way to reduce it ever so slightly.
We could cut back the soffit if that's what the board wishes at.
And that would result in, what would the new calculation, what would we be looking at?
Well, we'd be at, they're proposing the rear wall at 3'8". If they make it flush with the rear wall and then the 6-inch gutters, it would be proposing 3'2" instead of 3'8".
Yeah,
Because the gutter
I'm
counts.
sorry. At this point, you're supposed to only be asking questions. So if you want to make a statement, you have to come back, and then we'll swear you in, because you can't testify at this point.
Okay, I understand. Sorry.
And just, I have a follow-up question for the architect. If you do what we were just discussing and cut back the soffit, whatever small amount, does that negatively in any way impact this garage?
No, it doesn't negatively impact the space of the garage. It would have an uneven overhang on the back of the garage, which only the people in the multifamily development would be looking at.
So what's the advantage to the soffit staying the way it is?
That it matches the front soffit and looks architecturally pleasing. It's symmetrical.
I don't have any other questions for the architect.
Can the garage be accommodated 25-foot space? I mean, the vehicle is roughly about 20 feet long, so I mean, an extra 10 feet is a lot of room in the interior space of the garage.
Well, he has trucks.
Yeah, it's a 20-foot truck. It's longer than that?
Do you have any concern about fire separation between the properties when you're less than 5 feet away from the property line in the code?
No, we can fire rate the structure if needed. Typically, it's exempt when it comes to garages. And as I said, the consecutive properties going down the block have garages on front and side property lines.
Do you know when they were built? Was it before the ordinance or after the ordinance was in effect?
I don't know.
A follow-up to that, though, the multifamily development is quite a distance away from his property line, is it not?
Correct. I don't know exactly.
I don't know the exact footage, but I know it's a distance removed from the property line. I don't have any other questions. I keep saying that.
Madam Chair, just to piggyback Mr. Hochstein and Mr. Herbert, I mean, the garage could just be shifted to get to the 5-foot offsets too. I'm not sure if there's a reason that it can't be shifted slightly forward or slightly to the left, depending upon what people think is the more critical setback there.
Thank you.
So somebody could, not necessarily the architect, somebody could respond to that eventually.
I just have questions about what you just mentioned about the development. The development as to the rear property line, it looks like it's in a regular shaped lot in the back. So is it, am I incorrect?
Our property.
Correct, your rear line. So there's two technically rear lines. The one that's on the right-hand side, on the garage, where the garage is going to be, if this application is passed, and on the left-hand side. Is the multifamily development far from, relatively speaking, far from both lines or just one line? Which line? Which rear line?
The one directly behind the garage. I don't know exactly how far it is from the other line.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board members? Any questions from the public? Oh, you have to come up. Speak into the microphone.
My name is Suzanne Newhouse. I would like to know.
Please just state your name and address.
Suzanne Newhouse, 67 Colfax Road. Our family owned next door to the applicant. I would like to know, we are always talking about the rear property line. How close will it be to our property? Because I mean, there's a space to park in front.
Ma'am, you said you live on Colfax? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure.
Correct. 67 Colfax Road, yes.
This is Short Hills Avenue.
Correct. Yeah, my family owns next door, 275 Short Hills Avenue.
That's the property to the left?
That's the property, correct, to the left.
You're facing the property, correct?
And there is no parking, there is no garage in our lot. We don't have garage. Our garage is in front because it's attached garage.
So just so the board understands, this is the property to the left. When
Correct.
you're looking at my client's house, the garage is to the right of my client's
That's
house.
what I would like to understand, where the garage is exact. Is it on the right side?
It's on the right side, it's
Right?
not on your
It's
side.
not on the, it's on the other side?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to, yeah.
Can you answer her question? Yeah, okay.
So,
With the microphone, please.
so the garage is located from the left property line, 21.8 feet. And that's to the property line. And the garage is approximately between what appears to be your retaining wall, like where the opening is. It'll be like right there.
So, okay, the garage is gonna be to
Just, can you just hand, sorry, the microphone?
the, so the garage will be towards the right side? Okay,
Correct.
okay. And let's say, because it's gonna be storage place, how about the lighting? Sometimes when the truck comes in, are they gonna be lights going on, disturbing our backyard? What is the lighting it's gonna be?
According to the plans, the garage door is facing the street, so the owner would pull directly in and into the garage and also back out potentially the same way. There would be one light located on that side, possibly to just light the yard, but it would be pointed downward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members of the public have questions for this witness? None. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would now like to call on the planner, please. That would be Thomas, we call him TJ Ritchie of Stonefield Engineering, and he is a professional planner.
Counsel, I presume this was not previously
It
submitted?
needs to be marked.
Okay, this will be A1 with today's date.
Thank you.
And just for the record, it consists of what appears to be an aerial view with markings, a map with markings, and then some pictures of the property.
Is your mic on?
It is not. There you go.
And I'll need you to swear in Mr. Ritchie.
Testing. Got it.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your business address.
Thomas Ricci, R-I-C-C-I, business address 92 Park Ave, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you.
You want to qualify?
Mr. Ricci, can you please just give the board the benefit of your education, your background, the license that you hold, whether you've appeared before boards in New Jersey before, and if your license is current?
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Ricci, I'm a senior planner at Stonefield Engineering Design. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I am also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I have been accepted by more than 50 boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including this board on numerous occasions. I have experience in everything from single-family residential to mixed-use, multifamily, to warehouse developments. All my licenses are active and in good standing.
Thank you very much. Any objections by any members of the board qualifying this witness as an expert in planning?
Mr. Ritchie, what I would like you to do is, obviously, there have been some issues raised by the board, and I would like those addressed, as well as you supporting the variances that are being sought today.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, in doing so, in support of the application, I prepared this aerial exhibit. I believe we marked this already. Correct?
A1.
A1.
5/16/23.
So this is a series of aerial exhibits and site photos that we took last week when we were out at the subject property. So I just want to start by walking you through the property because I know there's been some questions about the lot itself and proximity to the development. So on sheet 1, it's a simple aerial. You see the lot 8. It's outlined in red. That's the subject property. The first thing that we notice, it is irregularly shaped. It kind of has this jog in the back of the property, and it's not squared off like a typical lot. It's also, although it complies with the minimum lot width requirement, it's much more narrow than some of the surrounding properties in the area. The second major thing you notice on the site is its proximity to the multifamily residential development behind us. So you basically have a line of single-family dwellings, and then to the rear is that larger complex. It's mostly single-family properties along this area of Short Hills Avenue, minus the property across the street. You have some garden apartments. So we'll flip to sheet 2. Same scale, just a zoning overlay. Just to reiterate what Ms. Harelik mentioned, we're in the single-family S60 zone. And then you can see that big blue lot behind us. That's the multifamily development. And then across the street, that darker yellow, that is the garden apartment complex. So we'll flip to sheet 3. Same aerial, just closer up. Gives us a better understanding of the actual lot that we're working with. You can see that I have the call out on here, approximate location of the garage and where this property, is going to go. So as Ms. Harelik and the applicant had mentioned, basically this garage was destroyed. Most of the properties in this area of Short Hills Ave have garages. This is an older community. It was built around the 1930s. Most of them have garages. The applicant's garage was destroyed by a tree, basically wants to rebuild the garage, upgrade it, still have the luxury of having a garage, but basically needs to build it a little bit larger because obviously in the last 100 years or so, cars have gotten bigger and we've accumulated more stuff in America, essentially. So there really is a need now to modernize and to upgrade this. It almost wouldn't make sense to rebuild it exactly how it was because that's not really relevant to the times that we're living in now. So that's really the reasoning for going a little bit larger. So we do have some variance relief that we're seeking. So we'll flip to page 4. This is the front of the subject property. And you can see from the street, when you peek into the rear yard, now we have a gate open on this photo, you can see the multifamily development behind us from the street. It's pretty apparent. But basically where that SUV is, if you look back into the yard where the fence is, that's essentially the proposed location of the garage, just to help orient the board. We'll flip to sheet 5. This is the rear yard as it exists in its current condition, basically just showing the driveway access, where the gate is, and how the garage will be accessed from the roadway. Sheet 6. This shows us the rear yard in proximity to the multifamily development behind us, basically on the right side of the property, kind of where that jog is. So that's where the beige fence on the right side meets that wooden fence. That's going to be the proposed location of the garage. So as I mentioned, we do have some C variance relief. We're seeking setback variances for the rear yard and then also for the side yard. Now, 5 feet is what's required for both the rear yard and the side yard. I believe on the plans it says 3.8 feet is proposed, but I believe, as I'm aware now, that might have to be lessened based on the soffits for the roof. So we do slightly encroach into those setback areas in the proposed location. When we're talking about the setback, sorry I have us flipping around, I want to flip back to page 3. It's the close-up aerial showing the location of the site and the shape of the lot. Now, we have the setback variances, but as I mentioned, although we do comply with the minimum lot width, this is a really irregularly shaped lot. You have this kind of piece, it's kind of like a handle in the back, that's really not usable. It wouldn't make sense to put a garage back there because you'd be increasing your impervious coverage and you'd kind of be doing an S-turn on the property to drive all the way in the back. So really the location of this is governed by 2 things. It's governed by the shape of the lot. This is kind of the next best location for the garage, and this is where it existed. And it's also governed by access. The lot is not that wide. Although it does comply, it's 60 feet in the front, it pinches down to 51 feet. So we lose 9 feet of width when you're going towards the rear of the property. It tapers in. And the driveway access is on the right side of the house. There's not a whole lot of width to work with. So yeah, we could pull it off those property lines. It's kind of speculative. Feasibly, I guess that would work, but you'd be pulling it into the middle of the property. So I just want to make note, a lot of this location is governed by where the garage that previously existed was located, and basically you have that straight head-on access from the driveway, which is really a result of the lack of width of this property. So we do have the rear yard setback, but by no means is this in the farthest portion rear of the property because we have this kind of odd shape. From an impact standpoint, I think, as we mentioned, there's no single-family properties in the back. This is a brand-new development. It's still being constructed as of last week when we were out there, and it's anticipated to remain for a very long time. It's probably going to it could even outlive, the single-family neighborhood to some degree. So we don't anticipate ever having impacts there. It's almost like a positive that the location of this garage, because if we flip back to the sheet where we showed it from the street, sheet 4, right, when you're thinking about single-family neighborhoods and protecting the visual impacts and the zoning and what it looks like when you're walking down the street. Right now, when you peek into the backyard, you actually see this really tall building. But if this application were to be approved, you see a single-family house, someone opens their gate, then you'll see the garage. It'll look a lot more residential, and what it's going to do is essentially block and buffer the the visual of the back of that building back there. So I think honestly, we do have these setback variances and we do have the height variance. I think this is not only a positive and a benefit for the applicant to have enough space to store his cars, which are obviously have gotten larger over time, and his stuff and belongings, but it also has a visual component where I honestly think it will improve the look from the street, and I think it's also going to give him some privacy from this large development that's behind the property. I mean, it's, compared to the building that's back there now, a 1.5-story garage is not egregious. I think it's honestly gonna help separate those uses than what exists right now. We do have to, I'll just talk briefly on the impervious. We are seeking the variance for that, but I think it's most important to note that that's not being increased on the site, it's just being changed. So anytime you move around the impervious, basically you rip up asphalt and then you build a garage over here, you have to re-permit it because it's being changed, but there's no net increase of impervious on site in the existing condition. So that being said, I think that these variances can be granted. There's the C1 provision and there's the C2 provision in the MLUL. The C1 provision is based on hardship. And I think the hardship here is we have a really irregular shaped lot. Pretty much all of the houses around us have either detached garages or attached single garages or attached two garages. Everybody has garages along along this street. The applicant's home is obviously located on a narrow lot, wasn't designed to have an attached garage, so it has to have a detached garage. Most families have two cars now. This is something customary in a single-family neighborhood. Wants to bring it, into modern times and be able to park the cars on the property. So I do think a hardship does exist for the shape of this lot compared to the surrounding lots, and I think it could also be granted under the C2 provision. Basically, the C2 provision in the MLUL is the flexible provision, that the benefits of the project substantially outweigh any detriments. And you have the benefits of the project. You have things like this is going to improve the look of the single-family neighborhood, which I really believe from the street. It's going to help buffer a single-family use to a very large multifamily use. So the buffering is a benefit. Visual aesthetics, which is purpose I of the municipal land use law. It's going to improve the look of the property from the street. It's also going to enable the applicant the opportunity to not need a shed or store stuff outside. It's going to have everything in a nice, neat garage, because I know a lot of people already have the attached garages and also sheds. This kind of combines it both into one. So I think that improving the look of the property itself with this proposal, I think that outweighs the detriments, which I think are minimal. It's very in line with what's out there now. Most people have garages, and we don't anticipate any negative impacts to the surrounding properties or to the multifamily development.
Okay, just, I know you've spoken to the detail of this. Let me just ask you this. With regard to the size and the look of this particular garage, as a planner, do you believe that this fits within the character of the neighborhood?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And with regard to that multifamily development that we see peeking through in the pictures, photo 1, which shows front of site with view into rear yard, that red that you see beyond the red of the vehicle is the multifamily. So it is your testimony that when the garage is actually built, that will in fact buffer the look of this large multifamily development sticking out from these single-family homes, at least from this perspective.
Yes, that is correct.
And with regard to the rear setback, because that's been discussed here quite a bit, the space that would be left behind the garage, if the garage were to move up a foot, let's say, or shrink a foot, what would be the functional use of that piece of yard that's between the end of the garage and the property line?
Yeah, even if we were to comply with that rear yard setback, there's not much you could do with the space back there. The applicant's already losing a good amount of usable space on the property because of that handle part. I mean, you could pull it off, but is that going to lessen the impacts? It's probably almost immeasurable. I think it's better to not comply with the rear yard and give him a little bit more room in the front, maybe of actual usable space, rather than have that gap. That gap is intended, I would imagine, because there's a 5-yard rear setback, and then if you have a neighbor with their backyard, they have to be 5 feet from the property line, so then you get the 10-foot building separation. It doesn't really apply in this case. I think it's more beneficial to have the applicant actually have that space to use on his property rather than that little gap behind the garage.
And you did just answer a question I was about to have as a follow-up, which is with regard to the multifamily development that you see as a planner as being different from if this was a single-family home that was abutting this property line. Is that correct?
Correct.
I don't have any other questions at this time for the planner.
Of course.
You keep talking about family having two-car garages or 2 cars. Do you know whether the applicant has 2 cars, or do you not?
I believe he,
I'm just saying, all your testimony presumes.
right. Yeah, well, if you look in the photo on page 4, there's the SUV there, and then he also has the large truck that he was talking about. So he does have at least 2 cars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk about the garage, just get some more clarity on the garages. So right now, the property has no garage, right?
Correct, yeah, because it was destroyed and then it was demolished.
Right. To the left, if you're facing the street, to the left of that property, as the woman testified, questioned, there's a single-car attached garage, right?
Correct.
All right, that's 1 car attached. To the left of that, in the same neighborhood, are you aware that there's no garage in that property?
If you go over 2 properties?
Yes.
There's 2 detached, they almost, I couldn't get back there. They look like either large sheds or garages, kind of oriented a little bit crooked, but there are 2 back there. Like I said, I can't testify to the fact that they can fit a car.
Okay. And are you aware that there are properties in that neighborhood without garages?
Yeah, there are some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the buffer, because that's an important point as well, the plans for the development in the back, I believe, and I don't know if you looked into it, but I believe there was supposed to be some landscape buffer that is to be installed, to be planted. Are you aware of that?
I don't know. I'm not aware of the details, but typically, like in my experience, yeah, they usually are required to provide some sort of buffer, especially when you have a multifamily intensity of that use to a single-family neighborhood. So I would anticipate that there will be some sort of buffer going up.
But just to be, that's just based on your experience. You don't know if there is or is not a buffer.
Based on my experience.
Thank you very
correct.
much.
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a follow-up to that. So let's say that there is a landscape buffer that's going up. Isn't it true then that that would even be another reason why, if you're coming closer to the property line, that that's not going to impact the development behind?
Correct, yeah.
Also, with regard to follow-up to the questions, across the street, is there a 2-car garage? A house with a 2-car garage?
It's not, well, directly across the
Well, I don't
street,
mean directly, but
it's the garden apartments, yeah, the one, if you kind of look to the right, there's a 2-car garage. There's a 2-car garage, detached garage next to us, on the right side of us. So if you're facing the house, 2-car on the right side, and then across the street, 2-car.
So it's fair to say that there's a mix of 2-car garages, single-car garages, sheds in this particular neighborhood. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
And no garages, correct?
Yes, but I think that, correct.
And also, some garages are attached and some are not, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
But in the S60 zone, if there's no garage, I would think that's a nonconformity.
You have to have at least 1 car
Yeah,
in a
that's
garage.
what I'm saying. That's a
Yeah,
that's a nonconformity right there. That's not something to compare it to.
Can you explain why the garage can't be complying with the setbacks if it was shifted a little bit like Mr. Disco had mentioned? I'm trying to see why it has to be non-compliant when you could easily, at least in my opinion, can easily comply with the 5 foot.
Yeah, so like we said, the basically one of the corners of, on the right side, we basically lined it up to be located exactly where it previously existed. And the reason of the location of where it did exist, because it lines up with the driveway. So you're right, we could essentially pull it off the setbacks, but like I mentioned, this is a narrow property. So then we're starting to move it to the middle of the property. So then now we have to add a little more pavement, and you kind of have to S-turn to actually get in it.
Moving pavement, if you shift it, you're gonna remove pavement where it would be closer to the property line, so it could be a net zero of change if you just shifted the driveway, correct?
Theoretically speaking, yeah.
And you could eliminate those two variances, at least it seems pretty easily.
Let me propose something, because I did pass a note to my client while all this was going on. And the size of the interior of the garage obviously is important for the size of the vehicles that he has, and the fact that his house is small and storage is something that's very important to him, which accounts for the height and a little bit more. I don't know about you, and I'm not going to testify for myself, but I could never get a car in my garage even if I wanted to. It's all junk. But anyway, that having been said, the applicant is willing to move the garage up by 1 foot, 4 inches. If you need the 5-yard rear setback, then he's willing to reduce the garage by 1 foot, 4 inches. Will that give it if you get rid of the soffit? What?
I think it has to be 1.8.
That's with or without the soffit? Okay, so he wants to retain the soffit. He's willing to try to move the depth so that you get your 5-foot rear yard setback, but the side yard is where the garage that was built was always. I mean, that is where it was. That's the line. So moving that would be problematic. That's problematic because now it's a 2-car garage, not a 1-car garage. So we would be willing to compromise on the rear yard setback, even though the planner's testimony I support, which is there is no impact to this closeness to the property line, given the development that's behind, given the potential possible buffer zone that would exist. But we want to accommodate the board if that's a great concern, because it's a bigger concern that this 2-car garage be able to be constructed and he's able to get his vehicles in comfortably.
Can't that be done with just shifting it? I mean, without even compromising size, if you shift the position of where that garage sits, you're not sacrificing size.
But then I think you're not going straight, if I understand the planner correctly, right now you're gonna pull in your driveway and pull straight into the garage.
That's correct.
It's going on the same exact footprint, it's just extending back.
But you're talking about a 1-foot 4 shift. You're not talking about, making a sharp turn to move it. You're just, would be complying. And you eliminate.
I would have you speak to that. I mean, obviously, I would think anything that's a straight line is better than any kind of a curve.
It's not really a curve, the shift is so minute, it's not like it's a S curve into the garage, it's a shift.
Yeah, couldn't he almost pull right into it still, even with a slight shift?
Absolutely. I just have some more questions about small, really quickly.
Yes.
I don't know if the planner's the right person to ask for this, but let me know when they're ready. Yeah.
Let's give them a minute.
The setback is 3.8, so the deficit is 1.2 or about 15 inches. If they shift to the left 15 inches, they eliminate the variant. The soffit is permitted to encroach in. As I heard it, it was 1 foot plus the gutter.
Oh, right, we don't need the additional soffit space because of, right, okay.
So we're talking 15 inches rear and side if you want to eliminate variances. And they're compliant with coverage, so no one, I mean, I know that was brought up about reducing the size of the garage, which is an option to achieve that setback, but they're compliant with coverage. So if they just shift the driveway, as has been suggested, 15 inches, then you eliminate those variances, and the lot coverage would still remain where it is. I I will point out the design of the garage does show gutters and then discharging two downspouts to the front and the rear. So what goes to the rear technically is going to be right at that property line. I believe it's a 10-foot setback from the property line to the road of the Saks or the Metropolitan. There's a 20-foot road, and then there's driveways to the building. So without measuring it, or unless Mr. Ritchie has it, it's probably a good 50 feet from the property line to the Saks buildings in that area. They are multi-story, so you can take that background information however you choose.
Thank you.
My client would like to come back to the stand, if he may, to further testify on this issue.
Okay, wait. We still have, let's hold off for 1 minute. Our more board members still have questions.
The planner?
For the planner, perhaps? Let's see.
It might be for anyone, so I'll
Probably
defer
me.
to.
Probably
Mr.
me.
Yes, thank you very much.
Or his testimony might actually end up not meeting the other questions for the planner. Let's see.
No.
It doesn't have to be from, I could ask.
Yeah.
I can ask him after he's done, after he's concluded. Thank you very much. I don't need.
Okay.
You could, you want me to address you have a question? I could
I can do
happily
it now,
address
really quickly, fine,
Do
as
any
you wish.
board members have any more questions for the planner at this time? No. Okay, then we can, then we can move on.
Okay.
Okay. Do any members of the public have any questions for the planner? Okay. Please come forward. Please state your name. and
David
address for the
Neuhaus,
Name and
Colfax,
address.
67 Colfax Road. I have a question. The property left to where the garage is being built has no garage at all. Actually, there is an empty, beautiful courtyard, backyard there, and so a big garage has a big impact to that. Is there any?
Sorry, you have to ask the planner a question,
Oh,
not make a statement.
I am.
Okay.
Getting there. Is there any plan to, like, do something to shield the other properties from that new structure, which is very large, like planting a set of trees there, or because otherwise the entire backyard is going to be kind of exposed to a very large, unusually large structure in that area?
Yeah, so I think, just to reiterate, the garage is located on the other side of that property to the left. But to answer your question, yeah, the applicant plans to do a line of arborvitaes on his property up against the fence, so that basically the trees, you know, it's anticipated that they'll provide like a nice green buffer over the fence, so you won't be able to see the garage.
How many trees are planted there, and what size kind of?
I'm not sure that's been decided yet, but what I can do is show you on the exhibit, on the photo, the location. And for the record, I'm showing page 6 right now of my photo exhibit. Pretty much the fence line and the area that's been cleared on the left side to put that line of trees to actually buffer the property from the neighbor.
I would just like to make a comment with regard to that's voluntary. There's no requirement that that be done.
I'm asking whether it's planned.
I think he
And
answered.
I think he answered that he's planning to do so.
Yes. Any other questions?
That is my question for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public? Questions for the planner? None. Okay, we're gonna call back the applicant. He's going to speak.
Just remember, you remain under oath.
Madam Chairwoman.
Did you have something that you, okay, let's
Oh, you
start
want
with
me-
your question.
Oh, now I
Yes.
understand.
Let's
Thank you.
start with your question. Yeah.
There's been some testimony that the house is small. How many square feet, livable square feet is your house?
Maybe 16, 15, 1600.
And I ask that because the tax records say it's 2,800 square feet. Is that not true?
It's not true.
I believe you. All right, thank you very much.
No worries.
Maybe
Was
the
there-
tax reduction.
What else is there?
He wanted to make a statement, and
Yes,
I
if you'd
would
like to
ask
make a
him to do so to the board.
So, just to give you a little history here, you could see the obscured shape of the property. At one time, it was owned by Saks. They were going to demolish the house. Their plan was to demolish the house and make a cut-through like they did on Morris Avenue. But you could see how they did along the other people's property to the right of this property and squared off the Saks property, but just left this one kind of obscured. So, the house the gentleman just spoke about, his house immediately to the left does have a one-car garage. The house to the left of that has a two-car garage with the garages maybe a foot off the property line. Immediately to the right of the property, my property, those two consecutive houses have detached, two-car detached garages on the property line. But I had said to Clara, if it's so important to cut the back, I would be willing to reduce the size of the structure by 1'4" to eliminate the backyard setback requirement, to eliminate the backyard variance.
1.2.
About 15 inches.
About 15 inches. But it's really, that property behind it is a monstrosity. It's 3 stories. All those units are 3 stories. The ones immediately on Milburn Avenue are 4 stories. Those peer right into the back of these homes, which mine is included. Okay?
And really, when you think about it in its totality, 15 inches, from your perspective, that this is going to make a difference, it's probably de minimis. So either way, it can be argued that this is pretty de minimis with regard to moving it or not moving it or where it's planned.
Well, then you eliminate my backyard even more so. It's not a wide piece. So even if you take another foot, 1.5 feet, 2 feet, it obstructs the vehicular movement of a car, and it also diminishes my property, the usable backyard, by 15 inches. It's not terribly wide. What did we say? It was 21 feet to the property line? You go down to 20. I mean, you're like, we're getting back to this obscure process. I mean, when it's affecting no one to the right and to the back.
How wide is the pavement?
The blacktop?
Yes.
8 feet, 10 feet? I had to eliminate the curbing here because we couldn't get
The lot
vehicles-
coverage.
We couldn't get the vehicles in the backyard because of the width of the driveway.
And to confirm, your current garage, or what was the structure, is currently on the same footprint on the side.
Correct.
Any other questions from board members for the applicant regarding what he just spoke to?
A clarification for Member Sada. So the plan, the site plan lists the lot coverage of the existing house as 1,600 square feet. That would be just the first story. It is listed as a 2.5-story home. So you had asked about the square footage of the house. So there's some context there that the first floor is 1,600 for sure. That doesn't even count the garage, which is tallied separately. I can't tell you exactly if there's a full second story, but 1,600 times 2 would give you 32. You're saying the records indicate 28.
And, I mean, everybody in Springfield knows that we just had like a townwide reassessment, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I think there's a porch, a big porch in your, something of that nature.
That's
So
correct.
that doesn't count towards the square footage, even though it counts towards the footprint. So let me follow up with that. Do you have a basement?
Yes.
Is it a full basement?
No.
All right, is there a crawl space?
Yes.
Is there also part of your basement is also walkable? so to
Yes.
speak? And your attic, is it accessible?
Somewhat, yes.
Is it accessible by stairs?
Very steep stairs.
Okay.
Not to code.
And it's not a pull-down ladder, right?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
And for clarity, the building coverage is the roof area. So the front porch, if it's roofed, counts towards that building coverage, although not the floor area.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much. Oh, yes.
One more question. related to all that, with the attic, with the basement, including the crawl space, can you help me at least understand what additional storage you would need? Not the garage, I understand about the cars, but what additional storage you would need for the garage? Over, not like lawn mowers, is there anything else aside from like lawn equipment?
Patio furniture, snow blower, garbage cans, Christmas trees.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
May I just one for the applicant before he sits down? So, to sum all this up, what is it right now that you are telling the board that you are willing to, if you had to compromise on the rear yard setback, what is it you're willing to do? Are you willing to move the garage more forward to accommodate that problem and save the size of the interior? Or are you talking about shrinking a little bit of the interior?
Shrinking the interior to give the 5 yard, to
5 foot.
conform to the 5 yard setback in the rear.
5 foot.
5 foot, in the rear, which if you were to turn to page, just for clarity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you turn to page 6.
Say what site photo number it is.
Okay, site photo 3.
Okay.
Put 1 foot 4 inches behind the proposed garage, increase it, the distance between the fence, the property line, and the garage 1 foot 4. To me, okay, but if the board feels that strongly, I'd be willing, in the spirit of negotiation, I'd shrink the depth of the garage and conform to the rear yard setback.
And would you have any functional use of that piece?
It will sit eternity as
Would you-
wide open space.
Would you be able to mow it?
You could mow it, yeah. Can't water it, can't put a sprinkler system in there, I mean, I have it, it's from here to here. How much space it's gonna be.
And we're talking about behind the garage,
Behind the garage,
and it probably wouldn't get sun back there anyway. So you wouldn't have nothing to water, candidly.
pretty much.
It'd just be muddy.
But we'd conform. We'd conform.
So, sum up, I guess the applicant is willing to adjust the depth of the garage in order to no longer have a rear yard setback, and then we would be seeking the other 3, which would be the height variance, the side yard, and the lot coverage. But the lot coverage is a wash, so nothing's really changed there at all. And the side yard, for summation purposes, is the exact same as it was when the other garage existed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to open it to the public for any comments that they would like to make with respect to this application. Do any members of the public wish to speak on this application? None? Yes, there's a copy of the set that's sitting right here on this chair if you wanted to review those. With the opportunity to review the pictures, do you have any comments that you wish to make on this application? Or we're gonna close the public comment portion. You'd have to come up to the microphone, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the trees, whether that's kind of a commitment or is that something that's maybe planned? No, you pulled one down, actually. You
You can have a
answered to me.
conversation back and forth off the record. It's-
In addition to what you already did, or total? According to the applicant, he will plant an additional 5 trees, but I will state also for the record that that's not a requirement.
Okay. On which side? Where?
Your side.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to make any comments? Okay, public portion is closed. Members of the board, thoughts?
I think the application overall makes a lot of sense. I certainly do not appreciate the testimony as to the buffer, but I do not find that credible at all, especially because people who live in this town, a lot of people who live in this town and in that neighborhood, know that there's supposed to be a landscape buffer. Same thing about the diversity of the garages. There is a diverse array of garages. Notwithstanding, the application makes a lot of sense overall. I'll defer to the others with more expertise as to, with their architectural and engineering, as to the variances, but high level, as a neighbor, overall, I support the application.
Thank you. Any other members?
So I think,
Yes?
so leaving the current footprint, I think where you're going in straight on the right, I understand the need for the variance, but you're keeping the footprint. I also don't completely understand why you would give back that 1.4 inches, sorry. But the way your lot is currently shaped, you have a much further setback on the side, so it looks like you have a very odd-shaped yard as it is. So I agree with what you're asking for, and I think it's the necessary thing to do with your current vehicle situation.
And for what it's worth, the trees on any side of that already narrow property, especially because there's a fence there, is unimportant, at least in my analysis.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Anyone else? So, before anything is proposed, what I heard is that the applicant is willing to reduce the size of the garage.
But would prefer not, but is willing to.
Right. So what I would like, here are my thoughts. I think that it's appropriate for the location. I appreciate the height for the privacy from the multifamily that is coming behind you. I appreciate that the impervious coverage is mitigated by a reduction in the pavement, and there would overall be no increase with the size as proposed. I would like to condition, if the board were to approve it, that this will not be a habitable space. I know that it says that there's no heating and AC, but I just would like to make sure that that is on, is a condition. Given that it is an irregular shaped property, I agree that where the location of the garage is again appropriate, and I don't think that it would cause any detriment. I would be in favor myself of granting the variances as proposed. But, so the applicant is willing to reduce it. I, in looking at everything, don't know that the reduction would change anything, would impact anything to the extent that it would need to be reduced.
And that remains our position.
So, that's where I am.
As you stated, I would support it.
Okay, that's great.
Would as well. I support it as well. just
Okay.
Based on what everyone said.
So is there a motion to approve?
I'll move with the condition, as you stated, no habitable space, no plumbing, no electric, no gas line.
Well, there has to be electric, but there's not going to be any habitability.
Forgive me, take out the, yes, no habitability, yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sahada?
Yes. I'm sorry, do we have a condition on the trees that was offered? No.
No
I am putting no condition on the trees.
Thank you.
Mr. Sahada?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein?
No.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
No.
Ms. Staparano? Yes. Mr. Weckstein?
Yes.
And Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 2 no.
Was my name called, or did I
No,
miss it?
because we're not missing 2 people.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I thank the board.
Thank you.
Still learning.
I could have called it in.
Okay, before we move on to our next application, we're just gonna take a 5-minute recess, please. Thank you. Okay, we're back on the record. It's 7:39. The next application this evening is application 2023-1, 247 Morris Avenue, Block 707, Lot 6. Site plan, parking variance, seating in existing restaurant. Is the applicant here? Yes, good evening. Do you have any witnesses with you this evening? No, okay. We're gonna swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your business address.
Karen Copeland, and then my business address is 247 Morris Avenue. I have the back. So good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. So today I'm seeking to add indoor seating to the restaurant. The restaurant is right now takeout only, and then I have a lot of clients that are asking me to have a seating. So I'm coming before you today in order to request a seating opportunity in the restaurant.
How many seats are you proposing?
So basically, I'm planning to have a bench and then 2 tables, have 4 chairs in front of each 2 tables, and that's it. So the restaurant is 809 square feet, I believe, if I don't make any mistake. And then the front seat is pretty wide. The table will not make any, will not take a lot of space.
So it's 8 seats plus a bench?
Now the bench will be toward the wall. So we have a table, and then having 2 chairs before each table.
Right, so 8 seats plus, how many people will be sitting on the bench? How many?
It's 2.
Yeah, I was going to pull it up, but I think she's.
If I may, I'm showing you a drawing that was submitted with your application.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that the seating you plan?
So yes, the bench here on the image is a little wider, but it's narrower than on the image.
So seating for how many people would you estimate you will have?
8 to 10.
What does the 8 to 10 do in terms of parking requirements?
It's 1 per 2.5 seats. 1 per 2.5 seats for the record.
So we're talking
4. And the history, of course, is that, you know, administrative approval to the retail component, just like previous takeout restaurants. It's when you add seating that the restaurant conditional use triggers, and you have to have the parking. So this is a four tenants and apartments in this complex on this property. It's insufficiently parked now, so there's an intensification. However, we, in the review, indicated the Google Earth global history of what the parking is during daytime random hours. We've done counts on the on-street parking, and again, it's just 10 seats, and whether that triggers an additional intensity of the use in terms of whether these same customers would take out rather than sit, that's for the applicant to present on the record. We also have the parking within, as the municipal parking within the limitation I put in the review, so the board has the ability to waive parking requirements when there are municipal parking lots within that literal, as the crow flies, distance. We have,
Across the way, right?
Yeah, we have the DMV lot colloquially.
Right.
Behind the applicant, and then we have Duffy's Corner further down the street, but still within the limitations, so. If you feel comfortable with the parking, you can waive the parking requirement because you have the municipal parking.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to interrupt anybody.
I wrote it there. So I was going to say.
Yes, we can ask questions.
Do
please,
most
members
of your patrons come by vehicle or on the bus stops there or walking traffic, bicycle, do you know?
Which one?
Do most of the people coming to your restaurant come by other forms of transportation besides a personal
So
vehicle?
right now, since we're doing mostly takeaway, so the customers mostly order takeaway.
Right, but are they coming into the restaurant? Do you know if they're getting off the bus or on the bus there? Because there's a major bus interchange there.
There is a line, bus
So are they
line.
coming from the bus stop
Not
or?
only.
Okay.
Not only, some are parked, but I always refer them to the back parking. So they always go to the back parking, and then usually we have parking on the street, so they also park there. So they never had any problem with the parking situation.
Do you have a public restroom
I have a restroom, yes.
for the public to use if they're
Yes.
dining there? They can wash
Yes.
their hands and sit
Yes.
down?
Yes.
And you're already open, right?
Yes.
How long have you been open?
Say it again?
How long have you been open?
A year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Except on Monday, I tried to go on a Monday and you're closed.
She needs a day off.
Sorry, I need to take off.
Need a day off.
We put no Mondays off on the resolution?
Just the parking situation in the back, I mean, are there already any assigned parking spaces, like your restaurant exclusively?
So no,
So-
it's not signed. So there's a barber shop, there's a flower shop. The flower shop doesn't have any customer coming in often. He mostly delivers, and then the barber shop is in and out. So I should be fine.
And but nothing is assigned by the landlord either, right?
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from any member of the public? None. Thoughts from the board members?
I'd just like to say that now that the DMV is not there anymore, then there's a parking lot that's probably underused there. And personally, I don't see that it's going to put a burden on parking.
I agree.
Thank you.
But that's a paid lot.
So, good, let people come and pay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's a paid lot.
Yes. I can just put a sign so that they know. I can put a sign in the restaurant so that my customers know they also have a space to park there, and then it's a pay park.
Mike, I'm not sure if you know the answer to it, but we've lost about 4 or 5 spots from the Gomes building in front.
Well, the sidewalk is currently closed. The parking is still actually available.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I tried to walk over there, it's all blocked off, yeah.
Anyway, that was my only comment.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, do we have a motion?
I'd like to move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Sahada?
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein?
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum?
Yes.
Ms. Naparano?
Yes.
Mr. Wexstein?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cunningham?
Yes.
And Chair Cohen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Okay, the last application on this evening is an appeal of a decision number 2023 AP. This is the First Congregation of the Presbyterian Church of Springfield, located at 37 Church Mall, Block 207, Lot 23. The applicant here this evening, or, sorry, yes, are we calling him the applicant? Is that it? Yes, okay, the applicant is here this evening. I think it's the appellant.
Stay. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Could you please state your full name, spell your last name, give us the address of the property in question?
Hi, I am the Reverend Dr. Roberto Fua, last name spell F as in Frank, O-I-S as in Sam. Don't call me Fios, please. I get that all the time. The office is located at 37 Church Mall here in Springfield. I come in a double capacity as the associate pastor at the First Presbyterian Church in Springfield and also as the acting executive director of the Share Alliance.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing us.
Yes. So I guess we'll have you present your case.
Yes.
And then we can have our official speak to their determination, and then the board will debrief and make their determination. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So upon receiving the determination from the township engineer, whom I commend for being thorough in the review, he identified three issues. The first one being that the applicant, as the Share Alliance, was a separate entity than was proposing to rent space from the First Presbyterian Church. I want to clarify that the Share Alliance is a consortium of houses of worship and other civic organizations in town. But the proposed ministry that the Share Alliance will manage is an extension of the ministry of the First Presbyterian Church. As per Mr. Disco's letter, we understood that the second issue was that a food pantry and community kitchen is not a permitted use of the facility in the zone currently listed. We took exception to that because feeding the poor, feeding the needy, is intrinsic, is inherent to the activities of any house of worship in any of the major traditions that we're all familiar with, in the Jewish tradition, the Hindu tradition, the Christian tradition, and Islam as well. Only, just because it's not listed, it doesn't or shouldn't mean that it's not permitted. So we thought that not permitted use argument was not applicable in this case. The third issue that Mr. Disco raised was parking. May I ask one of my board members to bring some photographs for you to see?
Yes, we'll just have to, these are photographs that were not part of your application?
They were not.
Okay, so we're gonna have to mark them into evidence.
Okay.
Are each one of those an individual picture?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so are you going to, you're gonna walk through each of them?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
I
so
am.
before you walk through each of them, we're gonna mark it and you'll describe it.
Okay.
Should we do one at a time as he goes through them, or we're gonna mark them all? I'm gonna mark them.
Okay. A1 is titled Parish House Dedicated Entrance. A2, Parish House Dedicated Entrance Holding Room. A3 Parish House main dining room, dining hall. A4 Parish House institutional kitchen, new freezer / refrigerator. A5 Parish House institutional kitchen, cleaning station. A6 Parish House parking lot, 14 spaces, comma, 1 reserved. What am I up to? A7 main sanctuary parking lot, 24 spaces. A8 is main sanctuary parking lot, 4 additional spaces. And then A9, main sanctuary parking lot, 4 reserved spaces. Thank you. And just so the record is clear, when you refer to each picture, can you give us the letter and number that's on the back? That way we'll know which one you're addressing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little nervous, you know. Last time I was here, I was praying for somebody blessing some event or something. It's a very weird situation to be here arguing a case. All right, let's get through this. Let's begin. Yes. So the parish house where the proposed activity is to take place, A6, has currently 14 spaces plus 1 reserved space for what we used to call handicap. So to Mr. Disco's estimation, that is not enough, it's not sufficient to accommodate patrons and volunteers. However, we propose to use the parking lot that sits behind the main building, the sanctuary, where the First Presbyterian Church worships. So we own both properties. That is a much larger parking space, has 24 spaces on that side. This is 8-7. Thank you, Reggie. Plus 4 spaces on the side along the fence. This is 8. Thank you. And also recently we set aside 4 reserved spaces right in front of the sanctuary.